Oh, guys, I got a text. Okay, let's read it. James, wake up. There's still 1 hour and 45 minutes left of this reunion for Love Island Season 7. Mamma mia. What's going on, you guys? James here with another real recap and review for the Love Island Season 7 reunion. That's right, 2 hours worth of probably the most uninteresting material for a reality show reunion. At this point, I'm missing the Nick Lachey and Vanessa Lachey hosted reunions for Love is Blind. What are we doing here? You're making me miss those reunions. You know your reunion's pretty bad. But today, we're going to get into my spoiler-filled thoughts. Yes, there's some stuff to talk about, but I'm going to give you my raw, unfiltered thoughts. Not as raw and unfiltered as some of the way these contestants been acting this season. Because, Lord. Now, if it is your first time here on the channel, welcome to Real James, where I love talking about movies, TV, and all the news in between. So if you don't want to miss out on that and so much more, hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, tap on that bell, and like this video. And let me know down below in the comments. Get loud and tell me, am I wrong? Am I wrong for thinking this reunion is boring? Or am I totally justified? Actually, we have some unseen footage. No, I'm kidding. Actually, that unseen footage might be more interesting than whatever they showed. But you guys... That's right. Today we're talking Love Island Season 7 reunion. And let me tell you, I binge watched, caught up on the season, but I'm going to be honest. I averted my eyes for like 99% of the challenges. I think the only one I watched all the way through was the standing on business one, because the other ones I thought, Lord Jesus, please forgive me, because what is this? This is nonsense. Nonsense. Alrighty, y'all, so let's get right into it. The reunion is taking place in New York City and includes basically everybody from Season 7. It's hosted by Ariana Madix and Andy Cohen. And I honestly thought at first, like, Andy Cohen, wow, this guy's pretty good at, like, these interviews for, like, you know, all these, like, Real Housewives shows and stuff. Like, he'd bring some drama. But I'm gonna be honest. He didn't do that great. I don't know. Both of them didn't do like an amazing job. I thought they did okay at times, but like as we were getting into it, I thought, guys, this is not interesting, and it's due in large part to maybe some of the bad questions. So I was hoping for a lot more, honestly. But this reunion had a little bit of everything: unseen footage, some montage highlights, bringing up crazy different dynamics, relationships, and yes, there were moments where they were popcorning. So it was like, hey, Huda, what do you think? And then Andrina, let's talk about the, and hey, Taylor, and okay, Iris. I'm like, guys, there's no flow and consistency here. But to be honest, that was the whole season. There was really no flow. Things just sort of happened, and people got text messages. Goodness, what cell service were they using in Fiji? I'm curious. But it began on an awkward note, and well, that wasn't the last awkward moment we had, but the Huda and Chris highlights they showed at the beginning, because yes, Chris was there, and Huda and Chris were a thing, and they were coupled up, and it got really awkward, and then they split up. And they showed the highlights in the beginning, and I thought to myself, okay, I know why they're doing this, to give us their reactions at the reunion, but man, oh man, it was just so weird. And it got weirder from this point on. So then they popcorn on over to Bryan and Amaya, and they asked about their relationship status, because if you're not caught up, and I'm barely caught up myself, apparently there were rumors that they're not together anymore. Are they still dating? Are they still exclusive? All these different things. And Bryan and Amaya said, no, listen, we're still long distance. Amaya's in New York, Bryan's in Boston, but they're making it work, apparently. I don't know what that means, but they're making it work, but they're not like together. It's very odd to me. But Andy Cohen said, all right, well, I'm glad you guys are still together. Now tell me about these cheating rumors, you dirty dog. And Bryan's thinking, all right, well, let me be honest. And it sounded like he was pretty honest. There was one part that made me question it a little bit. But when Andy asked about the cheating rumors with Bryan, Bryan was apparently, allegedly, at a club, and people were saying, you're cheating on Amaya. Well, Bryan said, listen, I had a lapse in judgment. And from that point on, I thought, you had a lapse in judgment? Then maybe you did cheat. But he said he was giving shots to other women at this club he was at. Apparently, him and Amaya talked about it. They worked over it, according to them. But I gotta wonder, if you're dating somebody, cheating isn't just physical, it's also emotional to a degree if you're even thinking about doing that with other women. And I don't know. I mean, to me, that's cheating. But yeah, they said they worked over it. I don't know. We'll see what happens after this reunion now. And then Super Chris hops in and says, no, let me save my glorious King Bryan. He said, I was there at the bar and nothing happened, you know? So I'm like, oh, okay, great insight, Chris. Anyone else on that panel could have said the same thing. But Amaya and Bryan said, we're comfortable with our relationship. So guys, they're still together as of this reunion. I mean, maybe something happens after the time of you watching this video, though. Who knows? Alrighty, so now they move on to Pepe and Iris, who get some love in the first half of this reunion, and they totally abandon them in the second half. Go figure. So Pepe says that Iris and him have had conversations about dating together, and they have a very different view on dating. And then Iris is like, very different? We didn't talk about this, but yeah, apparently Iris said she wants to be Pepe's girlfriend, and Pepe's like, well, I thought when we said we're exclusive, that puts the label on it. But they're not serious about this. Guys, do you really think that Pepe and Iris, if by this point are not boyfriend and girlfriend, will they be boyfriend and girlfriend? I don't think so, but crazier things have happened. All right, let's stay on Iris, though. So Iris said that apparently there was a meeting that was filmed of TMZ caught her meeting with TJ, and people blew it out of proportion, but Iris confirms, and so does TJ, that they had a meeting together and they were just providing closure for one another. And that was that. It did take a little conversation, face-to-face combo, but they did it. So yeah, PJ in the green room was like, yeah, man, it was nothing. Moving on. So of course, you know they're going to bring up the whole Pepe, Hannah situation, but Pepe said he spoke with Hannah after the villa as well. It was a phone call, but he checked in on her. And hold that thought. Put a pin in that, you guys, because we've got a lot more to talk about with Hannah. So Andy Cohen moves on and says, all right, well, you know, it's still kind of semi-awkward, right, between Chris, you, and Huda, because you guys are, like, sitting apart from each other. I wonder what gave that away. Maybe the fact that Chris didn't want to pick up Huda and walk her across these, like, puddles of water and stuff. I wonder. Huda said, no, it's fine between us. And then Chris said, it's very weird. Actually, he said, it's weird. No, it's very weird on my end. And I thought, Chris, you really do not like Huda. Yeah, but he's dragging it by now. I'm like, just give it up, Chris. Listen, don't you have something better to do? And then Chris had to put the nail in the coffin and said that, hey, you know, my mom is actually happy with how things played out. Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like, Chris, you guys were never really, like, official, so your mom, of course, is going to be like, all right, I'm glad. What else is she going to say? Anyway, so moving on to another Chris and Huda moment where Chris says he does not respect what Huda has said in the press about him. Oop. And then Chris said, actually, I'm not even going to be friends with her. Double oop. But man, Chris, at this point, I think it's safe to say Chris and Huda are not going to be speaking to each other after this reunion anymore. Huda did mention one more thing and said, I did not like the hate that Chris was getting, and I apologize for how everything was handled. And Chris said, all right, fine, I forgive you, but I'm not going to be friends with you. Meanie. He didn't say that, but he basically did. So the host asked Huda, are you in a relationship currently? And Huda said, I can't speak about my relationships outside of the villa. And get a load of this reasoning. They ask, well, why is that? And she said, because of legal reasons. And they're like, legal reasons? What the heck happened? And she said, oh, and Netflix. You're mentioning a competitor on a platform like Peacock that, you know, the Peacock executives were like, Huda, you're about to get a text, a cease and desist. I don't even know how that would work, actually. And then they do the occasional breaks into the green room, and Hannah just seems to be slurring her words, at least in the green room, and I don't know what they're serving, but it was odd. And the only reason I made that note is because I had to rewind, and I'm like, am I mishearing something? I'm not watching with subtitles, but praise God, my hearing's pretty good. And no, it was just her slurring her words, so I have no idea what was going on there. But they move on to Olandria, you know, Nick and Olandria, you know, that's the name for them. So clever. But Nico and Olandria said, yeah, we do feel the pressure to label our relationship, but for right now, no, we're not boyfriend and girlfriend. And then they mentioned they're going on like dates and like extravagant vacations, and then they're like kind of staying with one another, and you know what they're doing. They're basically doing everything but calling themselves official, and they're playing house together. Listen, I'm just saying, just y'all, are you boyfriend and girlfriend or not? I mean, they're not living together. Olandria said that much on social media I saw, but they're doing everything else because I think, if I'm not mistaken, later on in this reunion, Olandria alludes to having already slept with Nick. And then Nick makes this joke, like a Belgian. It was gross. And then Ariana Madix had to bring up Sierra because why not put a damper on their parade? She said Sierra won't be joining, but wanted to recognize her and Nick's relationship. And it was in that moment where Nick, it was so funny, Nicky gulped so loud, he was like, Sierra? So Nick continues to speak about Sierra and says, well, I haven't spoken to her after the villa, and I don't plan on it. Yeah, standing on my business. I love you, Olandria. That's what he's basically saying to her. So the next contestants to come out are Ace and Chelley and Clarke and Taylor. The most impactful thing Taylor did this entire reunion was come out with this crazy tiger head as his lapel on his blazer. It was distracting. And you know what else was distracting? The fact that Ace's tie was not tightened up to the collar. Come on, man. Just pull the, the little thing behind the tie, just kind of pull it a little bit tighter. Make that not too tight, but tighter because, bro. Apparently, Clarke said she visited Taylor's hometown and family and said it wasn't hard to fit in with him. And that was probably the most insight into the relationship that we got all night long. So if you're wondering, are Clarke and Taylor still an item? I don't know. When asked about Taylor's decision-making in the villa, though, Taylor said, hey, I was pretty torn between Clarke and Olandria when she left the villa and then returned. Y'all remember the little, oh, I'm gone, but I'm not type of thing? Yeah, Taylor was so flippy-floppy, but during the show, guys, we all knew, right, that Taylor was going after Clarke. Am I wrong on that? Like that, he seemed like full steam ahead, so I don't know what he's saying about being torn. Taylor then apologizes to Olandria for not being good about disclosing his feelings for her. He goes on to say, listen, that's still my dog. And then the camera pans over to Olandria, and Olandria's like, she doesn't make a noise, but she basically said, okay, we're not. And nobody clapped. So it was an awkward moment, very awkward. And then they move on to Ace and Chelley. And one thing that I feel like I didn't know before this was Ace and Chelley had apparently met before Love Island, which is not good with reality shows because you're supposed to probably go on these reality dating shows not knowing the other contestants because it really hurts the integrity of the show. But they brought it up anyway. Ace was apparently shooting a shot with Chelley at some sort of club, and they kept messaging each other, and he was commenting and liking and hearting all of her stuff, and then they go on Love Island and coincidentally couple up until the very end where they got voted off. And the first of many moments where Olandria swoops in to defend Chelley. She says, listen, Shelley's not fake, and Ace isn't a villain, and they're my friends, so stop picking on them. No, she didn't cry. Well, she did cry at the end, but she didn't cry in this moment. I will say though, Olandria and Chelley, I got thoughts on them, but those will come a little later. When asked about their relationship, Ace and Chelley, they reveal they're still exclusive, but they're not saying they're boyfriend and girlfriend. And then Ace goes on and says, well, no, I'm in love with Chelley. Okay, you're in love with her, but you haven't even asked her to be your girlfriend? Ace, I think you like the idea of being in love with her, but there's commitment issues here, man. I don't even know, man. Maybe they're just here for the reunion. I don't know. Somebody help me make it make sense. Anyway, next contestants that come out are the others from the entire experience and those from Casa Amor. So, of course, naturally, they go to the one contestant that I'm even surprised made it through without falling asleep. And that was Austin. But the only reason in this moment he was the most animated was because they asked him about his body count, the infamous, true or false thing or whatever. And he said 1,000 or something like that. I don't even know. But he said, well, you just got to subtract some. Austin, this entire reunion was just I think he thought he was being funny, but it didn't work. Then they transitioned to Andrina. And, Andrina and TJ said, hey, it feels like home and a family back again. And if this feels like home, and if this feels like a family to you, y'all need therapy and Jesus. A lot of Jesus. And then Zak K, they bring Zak K in. He's joining remotely. He has one moment in this entire reunion, and I guarantee you he was sleeping on the Zoom on the other end after this. He turned his camera off. Either that or he added some sort of effect, because there's no way he had his camera on this entire reunion. Brother, I would have fell asleep too. And then they pan over to Elon, and he's got a curl that's really, really long. That ain't Clarke Kent. That's Bizarro, because what is going on? And Andy Cohen was really funny, kind of shady. He looked at him and said, Elon, look at your hairstyle there. All right. And then transitions to the next topic, and I thought that was pretty funny. So now we have the Coco versus Olandria debacle, and Chelley. Chelley kind of taps into this fight too. Apparently, Olandria didn't want to speak with Coco during a night out before the reunion, and Olandria didn't like what Coco said on a podcast and basically called Coco a liar. So apparently Olandria is very mad at Coco for trying to damage her character. But Coco said, I wasn't disparaging your character. I simply alluded to something that would disparage your character. So when Andy Cohen was trying to butt in here, Coco said, no, raised her hand and said, I want to talk, and quieted that man. Dang. To me, it does sound like Coco was being a bit shady towards Olandria on the podcast, and this opens up the conversation for people playing into narratives. So Chelley comes up and says, yeah, I believe that some people were playing into the narratives, and Chelley and Olandria name Huda as playing into this bully narrative, and then Coco playing in the narrative against Olandria, and Vanna randomly shading Chelley. To me, this felt like a tag team sort of match between Chelley and Olandria. They just kind of kept going back and forth. I do think there's room for that theory that Chelley and Olandria were not the mean girls, I'd say, but they were definitely kind of leading the pack a little bit and swaying some people's decisions. So listen, they had influence. But I do think that they came off a little strong in this reunion, and I thought, I don't think this is the win they think it is for them. So then we transition to Zak K, and he apologizes to Amaya about what he said during the Standing on Business challenge. But Bryan isn't done defending his not girlfriend, maybe. He says, Zak K, remember what you said in that live stream on your TikTok, that we were only in it for the money? And then Zak K's like, nah, bruv. What do you say, isn't it? That's not what he said at all. But Zak K did deny it. And Bryan said, oh, yeah? Well, no. I know you said it in your life. You said we're playing the game. And Zak is like, I didn't say that. Great. Glad you cleared your name there. You don't think the producers could have pulled up this TikTok? Why? So then we get to an awkward moment with Austin and Jayden, where Austin and Jayden were asked about them leaving as a couple and where they stand now. And Jayden says, Austin, you can take care of this one. Why don't you answer first? And Austin freezes, but doesn't just freeze. That man literally, like, the controller died. And he's just sitting there. And I'm thinking, hey, Austin. hey, Austin, they're taping. They're live. And then Austin said, well, I don't know what transpired. That man is lying. He knows what transpired. He just wants Jayden to say it. So Jayden explains that she was blindsided after she sent Austin a message asking for him to give her a heads up if he sleeps with others. And here's the kicker. She's okay with him fraternizing with other women, she's okay with him fraternizing with other women, but she just wants a heads up. So you're okay with him doing it, but then you're mad when he does it, and then when he does do that, he doesn't give you a heads up. Who cares if he does? He did it. It's cheating. It's cheating. I don't even know if it's cheating because they're not even together, but it doesn't matter. It's still bad. It's bad behavior. Austin, that's nasty. Get right. And it's a weird situation altogether. You know what? They deserve to leave the villa together. Fine. But Andrina swoops in and says, well, Austin, I saw you send texts to Jayden saying you wanted to be with her and date her, so which is it, homie? But my question is this. What about Austin's character made you think he'd be a stand-up guy in a relationship and be committed to you and only you? Nothing suggested this. So let's go back to another Huda-centric dramatic moment during the reunion where Huda apologizes for what she wrote about Pepe and Graycen during the Standing on Business challenge. And somehow this actually ended up being a sweet moment for Huda and Graycen because Graycen says, listen, no problems between us. You're awesome. And then Huda's like, no, you're awesome. And they're like, man, we're toxic. I mean, awesome together. Graycen does mention that she wishes Pepe would have been more honest with her so that she could explore other connections. And Pepe said, listen, I felt like I was being honest with you. Well, actually, maybe I wasn't. Yeah, I probably could have given you a heads up, but I felt like I did. I'm like, Pepe, hey, Pepe, make up your mind, bro. And I know we all saw the show. Pepe, you should have spoke up earlier. You were not locked in with Graycen, but then it took the experience away from Graycen because you were telling her that you're locked in with her. So what's happening? And then because you can't get away from Ace this reunion, Coco out of nowhere brings up that she wishes Ace would have been more upfront about his feelings so that she could have explored elsewhere as well. And honestly, I get that because Ace really was just like back and forth. He was like, I'm feeling Chelley, but I'm picking Coco. I'm feeling Chelley, but I'm picking this person, picking Amaya or whatever. And I'm like, bro, what are we doing here? I don't know. Here I was thinking, Ace, so innocent, teaching people how to dance. Not so much. And then we get into the whole Chris, Chelley, and Huda situation where Chelley basically confirms that Chris was brought back to the villa for both Chelley and Huda to explore, but it didn't really go that way according to her. She was trying to make the story that apparently this was like Huda kind of changed the story on her, and I didn't know this was going to happen, and I'm thinking, I don't know. And so were the producers. So then the producers were like, you know what, let's roll the unseen footage. And in the unseen footage, Chelley does reveal to Huda in this one-on-one conversation when Huda brings up the idea of bringing Chris back to the villa. Chelley's like, it doesn't seem like a bad idea, but Ace is still my number one. Even though Chelley didn't seem confident in the idea at all, she still said, I get it, that's fine, okay, yeah, well, I know why you're bringing him in then, okay. So, like, Huda said exactly what was in the footage, so in this instance, I do think Huda wins, but is it really a win? Because it ended up being terrible for everybody. And during this entire exchange, everyone looked incredibly bored. Zak K literally fell asleep on the remote couch. Imagine how bored you have to be on a couch and look like you're falling asleep. What a snooze fest of a back and forth segment though. Mamma mia, it dragged. So we've got new contestants coming out. Hannah and Charlie are brought out. Charlie, the Greek Brit. What up, Charlie? And Hannah then goes on to talk about her feelings with Pepe and says, listen, I feel Pepe and Iris deserve each other. I'm happy for them. Iris is my girl. Pepe, Iris is my girl. Charlie then reveals he doesn't hold any animosity towards Hannah for coupling up with Pepe, and then also says, listen, let's talk about me getting voted off. And he felt some type of way, clearly. He did say he felt he was the easy vote off the island, but that it should have been Taylor. And Taylor's like, why am I in it? But honestly, he said that it should have been Taylor due to like whatever, him being in between Clarke and Olandria, but I'm like, what does it matter at this point? So when asked, Charlie said, listen, Hannah and I will never rekindle romantically, and Hannah agrees. So then more unseen footage comes, and I thought, oh my gosh, this could be exciting, right? It's unseen footage about the deliberations between sending Hannah home or sending Iris home. This was between Olandria, Huda, Chelley, and Sierra, and let me tell you, this footage was boring. Oh my goodness. I thought to myself, what could make this better? And Sierra tries. She starts crying, and it is the most forced cry. Listen, I get it. It's an emotional experience. I mean, I don't get it because I would never do this thing. But like, I can imagine for them, it was emotional picking one of the two women. But when Sierra starts crying, I feel like everyone collectively in that clip looked at her and was like, what is happening? And then she starts crying, and she's like, it's just such a tough decision. And when they're like, okay, we're going to count to 10 and then name people. And all of a sudden she's like, okay, let's do it. I'm like, girl, you really just wanted that 5 seconds of fame. Anyway, I'm off that soapbox. Of course, they send Hannah home. And then after the footage and they cut back to the reunion, Hannah starts bawling her eyes out. And let me tell you, this was the beginning of the end for this reunion because it was such a boring stretch from here on out. That word boring is coming up a lot. So Bella joins the reunion and Andy Cohen butchers her name at first. I think he did that on accident and he tried to play it off. Didn't work. Bella was a good sport about it though. Bella says that she's still friends with Huda, even though this is the first time they've seen each other since Bella was voted off the island. Don't know if that's a friendship or if that's just like a "it's so good to see you" type of deal. Then they bring out Jeremiah, and I thought, okay, maybe this could save the reunion a little bit. So they asked Jeremiah about his relationship with Huda during the show, and he said, yeah, it was toxic. Duh. Anybody could have said that, bro. I mean, it was bad. Huda says, listen, I'm still working on being a better person, after they show some clips of Huda and Jeremiah. And Huda said, listen, I do feel, though, Jeremiah, you love bombed me. And he did. Jeremiah disagrees and says he asked during the show multiple times if he's doing too much. And he reveals that Huda told him that he's not doing enough. And would you look at that? We have a classic he said, she said scenario. Who to believe? I don't know. Such a little time. I'm kidding. They had 2 hours to talk about it. I think they were both just bad for each other, man. There's not a right and a wrong here. It's just all wrongs. No rights. Ace then reveals that Jeremiah mentioned to him that this show would be good for winning money and the followers that he gained outside the villa and the profit he would make. And Jeremiah said, I didn't mention anything about money or followers. Awesome talk. Great job, guys. Let's move on. Whatever. Andy Cohen said, hey, Taylor, I remember on the podcast that you mentioned that Nick and Pepe wanted to get to know Andrina, but Jeremiah said to the guys, don't speak with her, and was being possessive. And Taylor said, yup. At this point, Jeremiah is trying to save his image, but I don't know if it can be saved. They ask Austin about the situation, and he's just so zoned out and says as much. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, I zoned out for 5 minutes. What happened? Oh, yeah, Jeremiah and Andrina situation. And then he just proceeds to give a non-answer. But then Ace steps in and asks Austin why he chose Jeremiah to get voted off the island. And Austin's like, hold on, buddy. I said that jokingly. That wasn't my actual vote. And Ace was upset. And then they cut to commercial. But he was upset and said, well, you know what? Jokes like that get people voted off the island. And I'm like, Ace, bro, if only you were this passionate about fixing your tie. So Ace is clearly trying to make a non-issue an issue and turn Austin against Jeremiah. But honestly, Ace, if this is what you saw, you need better glasses, because there's no way that Jeremiah and Austin were against each other at all. Come on. All right, let's move on to another unseen footage moment, and it's deliberations to vote out Jeremiah. And this involves Ace, Nick, and Taylor, and it's so incredibly boring that I have no notes because I didn't care about it at all. Seriously, it was bad, you guys. Tell me, am I being harsh? But it was bad. Jeremiah does continue to bring up Ace and says that he is the main antagonist in his view, and Ace gets defensive. Ace even goes as far as to say Austin called him a little ringleader, and Austin's like, that I didn't say that. Okay, not that adjective. Oh, okay, maybe I did say the thing about the ringleader. I'm like, Austin, get your head in the game, okay? Would you not watch High School Musical? But yeah, I don't know. It didn't work for me, this whole segment. They were really trying to play it up and it didn't work. Ace says he does regret sending Jeremiah home, and in retrospect, it should have been Austin. Well, of course, because you just don't like Austin now. But in the moment, you wanted to send Jeremiah home because you were fed up with the whole Jeremiah Huda thing. And this was an interesting moment where I think the producers were trying to save face a little bit with the winner of Love Island, and this involves Amaya. Amaya allegedly posted a video where she made fun of Ace's height, and I thought, yikes, that's bad. And then she does confirm it, because she says, well, my team was trying to get the video taken down. Double yikes, because Amaya, listen, not that I'm not a fan of Amaya, but there were times where Amaya would say and do some stuff, and I'm like, this isn't like this innocent person. I don't know. And then Andy and Ariana try to stir a rumor that Bella and Jeremiah are a thing. Bella disproves it. They both agree that they're not getting together and they don't talk. Whatever. So Andy Cohen goes back to his saving grace of this reunion, Huda, and says, Huda, you're saying you've done so much self-reflection and you've grown, but in a month? And I'm like, Andy, bro, you're really trying to knock her down, huh? I believe that Huda's been working on herself, but man, that show, you want to talk about an image breaker, bro. I mean, I don't know. Huda was asked about the bullying she alluded to in the press after the show ended, and then they transitioned to Chelley, and Chelley's like, well, listen, there wasn't a time where Huda was bullied, and Huda said, well, maybe it wasn't bullying, but there were things said that were hurtful. And I'm like, I don't know. Why do we care? Olandria then unfollows Huda apparently after the show because there were like racist comments being hurled at Olandria from Huda's supporters. Not from Huda herself, but from Huda's supporters. Huda claims, I said I don't stand for this, and she said I don't stand for racism. And then I get Olandria's side in a way because that is a lot to sort of like carry after the show. So she unfollowed Huda. Huda didn't, according to Olandria, like make a statement or anything in that moment, but I don't know, man. Okay, this is so like they're clawing for scraps at this point in the reunion. But what I will say is that some of y'all take this reality dating TV show genre way too seriously if you're sending posts like that to black women. Don't do that. I don't stand for that either. No good. So Chelley said that she doesn't want to be friends with Huda when they ask her, and Olandria says, well, me too. I don't want to be friends either. And then they win the tag team championship. So yeah, Huda's like, well, that's okay. That's fine. I'm like, Huda, you coming out of here with one friend, Bella, who you haven't seen since the show ended. That's about it. They bring up the heart rate challenge, and an unseen extended version is shown, and let me tell you, I averted my eyes and it was just nasty. Like I mentioned at the top of this recap, I fast forwarded through 99% of these challenges, and seeing that, even them talk about it, and I'm like, no, and then they come up with whatever outfit they add on, so I just fast forwarded that thing. I'm like, nope, I ain't watching this. Nope, this is disgusting, nasty stuff. And Huda, as a mother, I was like, whoa, now. That's crazy in the challenge. But they're all nasty. All of them. They're all nasty, that challenge. Like, there's not one person on the show that you could say is like, oh, so pure at heart. You know what I mean? It was just bad. What a terrible reunion. Because that was the end of it. They were going to do some sort of like, let's take a look back now at the friendships that were formed during the reunion. And I'm like, that's my cue. Going right to this set and recording this video because I ain't spending no more time on this reunion. And that was like 4 minutes left. But still. 2 hours of what I would consider a terrible reunion for a reality show. It makes you miss Love is Blind US, I'll tell you that much. But I'm never watching this show again. Love Island is so far off my radar that I'm thinking never again will I sit down and watch a second of this show. However, it is a good conversation piece, at least for this video, so I hope you're getting loud and active in the comments. Let me know what you think. Who was your standout? Who came out the best? And who came out the worst after this reunion? And hey, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, like this video, tap on that bell because this week we are covering Love is Blind UK's finale and got some cool stuff coming up as we begin the fall movie season. We're like getting out of the summer movie season as well. But I'm so grateful for your support. Thanks for sticking with me. I hope you like the purple lights in the background. I'm trying to be aesthetically consistent with the theme of what we're talking about, but thanks for making this possible, you guys. Your support means the world. Can't wait till we get to 30,000 subscribers as well. Alrighty, y'all. Well, thanks again for tuning in. God bless you guys, and I'll catch you at the next screening.